Here at the Donets, you can do some really great float fishing with light telescopic rods, bolognese rods, or match rods. You can really make good progress here with your float skill points. Yeah, and alongside building up your float skills, you can also earn a decent amount of silver here. And the nice thing about the Donets is we've got fish here that are exclusive to this river. That means if you're looking for more trophies, the kind that can only be caught right here, well then, get yourself to the Donets, because it's really worth spending an hour here on float. And with basically, well, mostly the same baits, you can catch really well here. So stuff like bark beetle larvae usually works great at the Donets, and that in lots of different spots. Even just in this area here, you'll find, well, I'd say about 3 or 4 exclusive species. So Taran shows up here. You also get Pontic Shad, Shemaya comes in here, so you definitely have the opportunity, and also the pumpkin seed perch. There he is again. You really do have the chance here to catch exclusive fish species at a good frequency, and of course there's also the chance to check off a trophy or two. The whole thing does actually get a bit stressful at times. 150 grams. Very nice. Especially if you're fishing with 3 rods here. That's why I really have to be careful what I'm doing, and always keep an eye on the right floats. That's what makes it tricky. Now, if you're just standing here with the telescopic rod, with only 1 rod pulling them out one by one, that's also really fun. You still get a very good frequency, and you can catch all kinds of different fish here quite nicely. Just be careful. My biggest fish so far have been chub up to 3.5 kilos, and yeah, they really put up a fight on the setup. So be careful how strong your setup is. About 5 kilograms should be fine. And there's still a bit of risk that something might break off with a telescopic rod. Otherwise, if you're here with a bolognese rod, even with the simple, cheap starter bolo setup, you can already do really well here with all these smaller fish and keep building skill points. So, now there are 2 options, and Thomas posted in the Discord that he caught his Pontic Shad trophy right over here in this area, just a few meters further. Let me just close everything here real quick, and yeah, there's still something biting. Alright, quick flip the bail, so the floats don't drift off too far. And I tested this yesterday as well, right here in front. So more in this area where the floats are now, and let them drift over here. There were more Rudd and Taran showing up here. So if you want to catch those too, this area works really well, especially if you let it drift down a bit further. Otherwise, right here on this dock, it's a total classic. Easy to remember because it's right near the specialty shop, the Atamon specialty store. Here we've got the Atamon rods, the Atamon hooks, which I personally really like using, especially size 16 right here at the Donets. Size 16 in general works quite well. The price is fair, and they really work great for both telescopic and float fishing. And we're also really close to the church, so you don't have to walk far from the village and you're already at the spot. Another option here would be to fish like this. You set your floats and then use a line clip, say here in this case, 6 meters, then just cast out with the clip. I've shown this method a few times already. For rivers it works quite well. And there it is again, the next bite, and there he is, the Pontic Shad. I'm still trying to get that one as a trophy. Would be great if he showed up here. And this clip method is just really convenient, especially when things start getting too stressful. So you just cast out all 3 rods with a line clip. In this case, I've got a 6-meter clip set, and the rods or floats drift over slowly, and eventually you'll get a bite. But for the floats that don't get a bite, they end up stuck in the line clip, so they hold in the current, and the moment a fish bites, the clip releases. We can strike right away, because it only releases once the fish bites, so until then we can still wait. Now the blue one here, I think it just twitched a bit. Let's go for that one. Didn't hook, but the blue one over there did. So then the clip just pops off and you can just cast it right back in. Same with the second rod. Cast it back in and then you just wait. until one of the floats reacts. Small downside with this method is when you're using match fishing, you usually have a sliding float rig. It works much better with a fixed float rig because then we can set the depth exactly. I usually go with about 80 centimeter depth here. This area works perfectly at 80 centimeters. And there's the next little perch. As long as the float is drifting like this, the bait goes down to about 80 centimeters. But once the float hits the line clip, the bait slowly rises again because it's a sliding float. That means the bait rises to the stop point and sits there at 18 centimeters, stuck at the top. So two options. Either use a fixed float rig or you build a leader, maybe 30 to 40 centimeters. And then with the leader and some current, you'll still be fishing a bit deeper if that's what you want. Or you can just fully close the bail, but that tends to reduce the bites a lot. For this spot though, I found it best to cast freely at about 80 centimeters. Also test different distances. I don't use a line clip here. Instead, I actually test different distances and just see which fish bites, at what distance, at what depth. I also watch the reflections in the water and remember at what reflection, at what depth did which fish bite. Then I try to keep hitting that same spot again and again, depending on the species I want. And in general, I also try to keep things close because if you're constantly reeling in, then it just takes way too long. So I try to remember the approximate distance and just bring the floats back in piece by piece. So now it all kind of runs in a loop. The floats drift, I reel one in slowly, then the next goes out and the next one comes in. So you end up with this continuous cycle, all with a bit of spacing in between. Exactly. Then we get the next bite, there we go. And that lets you keep all the floats in a nice rhythm and reel them in one after the other. And that rhythm just works really well. So you just go in a nice flow, one comes in, or you've got a bite, then the next one goes out. So if you're in that flow, you don't really feel the stress. But of course, sometimes it still happens that 2 or 3 rods get bites at once. Well, then it gets stressful. That's just how it goes. We're getting into the evening hours now, so I've got to hurry up a bit because those evening hours are also really productive. Now, let's take a quick look at the cafe orders. And of course, check out what kind of silver this whole thing is bringing in. First, let's check the cafe. And we could still go for the Taran, definitely an option, but then at the spot to the right. Otherwise, let's have a quick look. What are the fish worth in silver? So I was standing right here once before for about 15 minutes in the evening hours. So those were the evening hours, and they already brought in 100 silver. And now, just now, it's kind of the second round, so to speak. I'm currently at 85 silver, so it always fluctuates a little depending on the type of fish. Basically though, you can say the Chub, Shemaya, Pontic Shad, even the pumpkin seed. Those are just the fish that really bring in good silver. Also the rudd, they're definitely worth it. So you can really do well with this if you're just trying to make a bit of cash. And like I said, all super simple on bark beetle larvae. And the setup, we're going to take a quick look at that now. So I'm just going to cast out again right here in front, just a little to the right of the position I was at before because there were also some rudd over there. And here we go already. Yes, there it is, the rudd. And they really bring in great silver too. So 2 spots right next to each other, that can really be totally worth it. Look here, the Pontic Shad too. That one I definitely still need again. And like I said, there was just the pier right here in this same area and just a bit next to the trees. It works just as well. Bam, and the next one, even up to the Taran, there it is already. And all of this setup wise is super simple. I'm using just 4.4 kilograms fluorocarbon here. So a very, very basic setup with a size 16 hook, and bark beetle larvae. I actually tested it yesterday evening, just with bark beetle larvae only, no combo bait. That also worked really well. So you can totally do this, even if you're standing here with the telescopic rod and just want to get some skill percentage so you can eventually use the combo bait. From the combo bait with the mayfly nymph on, it gets even better. However, The bait also changes a bit, because with the mayfly, you get a lot more chub again. So that makes things a little more tricky for telescopic fishing, because the chub can get really big. Otherwise, even just with bark beetle larvae, it already works really well. So this is really something you can do very well here. And silver-wise, it totally paid off yesterday. That's why I came back here again today, wanted to test it right away. It's just totally worth it if you're up for some fishing on the Donets. That's all for now. If it helped you, leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Helps me a ton. And then see you in the next video. Tight lines. Until next time.